The rocks at Thomas Point Light are good. The rocks at Thomas Point are better, okay? And everybody kind of knows Thomas Point Light. And if you go there after 7:30, just go somewhere else. Because there've already been 30 boats that have cast everything under the sun at those rocks over and over again, rev their motor up to get out of there. I mean, it's a really early or really late kind of spot, with few exceptions. Rainy days are great here. But if you go in towards the point itself, you got several rock piles that are underwater. So if you go there, right, if you're on your boat, you're facing the point, to your north you're going to see a red marker. Go there when there's a tide running and you'll see a visible rip, okay? Go there on a really low tide and you might wipe out your lower unit. So don't go there on a really low tide, or you're very slow if you do. When you see that visible rip, you want to putt up to it really, really, really slowly, cast to it, mark the spot in your meter, and then when the tide isn't ripping, you'll kind of know where the rocks are. Depending on whether it's an incoming or an outgoing, that rip is going to be, it's not going to be like dead over the top of those rocks, it's a little off of them. But if you're being there a couple times and making a few marks on an incoming tide or an outgoing tide, you've got your chart plotter, you go, okay, now I kind of know where it is. So that's kind of the key there, is to go there when the tide is really moving hard, find that rip. That's a really good spot. I used to tell people, go there from October on and you'll catch fish, but I stopped saying that because the last few years there have been fish there in the spring. Now if you're looking at that red and you look back over your shoulder and you see Thomas Point itself, there is a really nice rock pile about 40 yards off the point itself, ever so slightly to the south. You can see those rocks on a really low tide. You can go there when the tide's ripping and see the rip and locate it. One caveat. Shoreline fishermen are often there. Like, I won't go there on a Saturday morning because the truth of the matter is I'm lucky enough to have a boat and I can go wherever the heck I want. Those guys don't have a boat and they're stuck there. So it really is kind of obnoxious to pull up to that rock pile. I'll go to the other one. I'll go to the one by the red. They can't go there. But the one right up by the point, it's kind of, not real polite in a lot of ways to go right up to that one. Now on a rainy day, on a Wednesday afternoon, absolutely, go right up to that point. Again, you got to go there when the tide's moving or when it's really low and you can see it and locate that rip. But actually, if you just make sure you stay, 70, 80 yards out and cast in towards shore, you'll get your jig over those rocks. So that's pretty much Thomas Point. There's some other rock piles, but I could never describe them to you standing here in a way that would make sense. What I'll say is, especially if you have a side scanner, if you just always leave it on as you're putting through the area there, you will find other rock piles. You will find others. All right, so that's Thomas Point. Let's talk Poplar real quick. Poplar is a really good spot to throw jigs. Within the last few weeks I was over there, it was full of fish, although the vast majority of them were throwbacks. So that feature I was talking about earlier with jigging, right, in this month's edition, this right here is a Google shot of Poplar, and I've marked on here some of the important points. Basically what you're looking for on Poplar is the points, which often form a little bit of a rip, and the icebreakers, which I don't know if they're really icebreakers, but that's what everyone calls them. They're basically piles of underwater rocks. They will definitely wipe out your lower unit if you're not careful, and they are not marked. One of them used to be, and they got all kinds of construction going on up there now. I don't know what they're doing.
You don't get too close.
Yeah, you really want to be careful. The good news is, once you locate them and put them in your machine, you kind of know how to work around them. And the one on the kind of southwest side, which again it's marked in here, that one is visible during almost all tides. You need a really high tide to cover up that particular rock pile. All these are excellent to work with jigs for stripers. Don't be discouraged if you catch 30, 18-inch fish, because that'll happen there. You'll work a chunk of that riprap and you'll catch 30 little fish, and then all of a sudden you'll catch a 26-inch, 28-inch fish. It happens. The one thing that I try and get across to people whenever they're fishing structure meeting the water, right, visible structure, is generally speaking, you want to drop that jig within a foot. When I'm casting a poplar, I want that jig to kiss right up against those rocks, and then I'll immediately start retreating so I don't get snagged or anything. Awful lot of the time, that's what produces the fish. My theory, I don't have science on this, is that that's because the fish are looking for the little critters that are popping out of the rocks. They're focused, if they're 3, 4, 5 feet away from the rocks, they're focused on the rocks. Here's the caveat. For some reason at Poplar Island, I don't know why, with some regularity, you will find pretty good schools of fish 15, 20 yards off the rocks, just sitting there. Don't know why. Don't know why. I'm sure if you fished, you've encountered that, right? They sit off the rocks sometimes. So with poplar in specific, 5 casts at the rocks, 1 parallel. 5 casts at the rocks, 1 parallel. If I go through, an hour or two of fishing like that and never get a bite on the parallel, I stop. I don't bother anymore. But it's worth probing and checking. One other thing about poplar that a lot of people, this kind of drives, I was going to say drives me bonkers. That's not really fair. One other thing that kills me a lot of times is people just go to poplar. They don't intentionally try and pick the spot where the fish are going to be feeding, right? You got points, you got icebreakers, you got current. Where are the fish going to be? On an incoming current, I will always start poplar on the south side. Current is hitting the rocks. It's stirring stuff up. That's where the fish are feeding. Fish are not going to go to the north end of poplar on an incoming to hide from the current. If they are, they're sure as heck not feeding, right? The feeding fish are where the current is slapping the structure. On an outgoing tide, it's the opposite. I'll start on the north side every time and work my way around, and by the time I get to the south side, usually the bite's gone down, 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 down. One exception with poplar in specific, and that is on the south side. There are a couple drainage pipes, right? They unload the dredge up inside. They unload the dredge up inside. The way they unload it, it comes in the barge as a slurry, right? And then they actually pump water into the barge to turn it into a really loose slurry, pump it up inside of the containment facility, and then it settles out, and the water on top drains out of these pipes. Well, that creates quite a bit of moving water even when the tide's dead.